Do you want a mind that cannot be controlled? An intellect so sharp no one can manipulate you? This is exactly what Machiavelli did. And today you will learn his 7 most dangerous secrets. Welcome back, warriors of the mind. Most people believe power comes from controlling others. But Machiavelli knew real power begins with controlling your own mind. Because when you cannot be controlled, you begin to control everything. Look around. This world is not led by the strongest, nor by the kindest, but by those who think further ahead. Those who see 10 moves ahead while the rest are stuck at the first. Power shifts, charisma fades, but strategy endures. The truly strong don't need noise. They don't show off. They don't argue. They simply observe, calculate, and act at the right moment. Machiavelli once said, "The wise do at once what the foolish do at last." Intelligence isn't about knowing more, but about seeing the essence clearly, acting while others hesitate, and staying calm when the whole world loses control. Money can be lost, reputation can collapse, but if your thinking stays sharp, you can rebuild everything. Pause for a second, breathe deep, and write one affirmation in the comments. My mind cannot be controlled. Because the moment you write that, you stop reacting. You start thinking like Machiavelli. Number 1. Intelligence is true power. Dominance doesn't come from controlling others, but from understanding them, and understanding yourself. When your awareness is sharper than your environment, you don't need to chase power. You attract it. The intelligent are never loud. They don't need to prove anything. They speak once and the whole room falls silent. Machiavelli understood that in every game of power, the one who holds the advantage isn't the loudest, but the one who understands the psychology behind others' actions. Physical strength can be defeated. Money can be lost. Reputation can collapse. But the mind, when trained correctly, cannot be taken away. People are obsessed with being liked, being validated. But Machiavelli said, "He who masters himself masters others." A trained mind doesn't seek validation, it seeks accuracy. And that is what makes it dangerous. When you're truly intelligent, you no longer argue, you observe. You don't react to everything. You just understand what's hidden behind those words. Others act out of emotion. You act out of calculation. That's the line between the controlled and the controller. Intelligence is not just knowledge. It is foresight. It's the ability to see through emotion, to pierce illusion, to see the true structure of everything. When you understand how people think and react, you no longer fear them. You observe them like a chessboard, because every action is a move programmed by instinct. Ordinary people try to appear powerful. They speak louder. They try to control through words or emotions. The intelligent are different. They make others adjust their behavior simply by understanding them better than they understand themselves. Machiavelli wrote, "There is no better way to guard yourself from flattery than to make it clear that telling you the truth will not offend you. When others know you are not easily swayed by praise or insult, you become immune to manipulation. The foolish are either overly defensive or overly naive. The wise stand in between, listening but not believing instantly, observing but not judging. Everything is processed through logic, not emotion. True intelligence is sharp silence, a kind of calm that makes others uneasy without knowing why. When you stay silent, you don't lose. You allow others to expose their weakness through reaction. That is strategic patience. In every psychological game, the first to react usually loses. Let them speak. Let them reveal their emotions. Let them expose their motives. And you just listen, because when they try to be understood, you are gathering data. A strong mind doesn't fight emotion. It understands emotion. For to understand emotion is to understand human nature. See fear, and you know how to navigate it. See ambition, and you know when to strike. Intelligence gives you the power of timing. A right decision made at the wrong time is still failure. The clear-minded are not bound by praise or blame. They don't need to prove, they don't need to be right, they just need to understand the game being played. Because when you understand the game, you don't need to win. You just need to control the pace. The intelligent don't fear being disliked. They only fear misunderstanding themselves. They don't waste time explaining to others. They analyze their own reactions. Why am I angry? Why am I triggered? Why does this affect me? Each time you answer, you reclaim a piece of control. Machiavelli said, "If you want lasting success, adapt with the times." True intelligence is not stubbornness, but adaptation without losing your essence. The intelligent can change direction but never lose their course. The world is always chaotic. People will always judge, but that is the price of clarity. When you see too clearly, you can no longer blend with the crowd, and that is the beginning of freedom. Intelligence is self-mastery. It is the ability to pause when others react, to analyze when others get angry, to stay silent when everyone tries to prove themselves. A mind like that is not born. It is forged through discipline, friction, and silence. When you reach that point, you no longer get dragged into small battles. You don't need to win every argument because you are playing a greater game, the game of awareness and control. Now write in the comments, "My mind is my power." Because when you believe that, intelligence is no longer a tool, it becomes a weapon. And when your mind is a weapon, no one can ever control you again. Number 2, conditioning perception. Conditioning perception is the step that turns intelligence into a practical weapon. Most people think they're smart, but true intelligence isn't measured by IQ. It's measured by your ability to adapt when pressure appears. The brain is like a muscle. Without tension, it weakens. If you only seek comfort, you are programming yourself for stagnation. The world doesn't destroy you through violence. It destroys you through comfort. Machiavelli said, "The wise man sees disaster from afar." To have that foresight, you must train your mind to handle collisions, not physical, but mental ones. Disagreement, conflict, challenge, they are the fuel of evolution. Conditioning perception is the ability to endure pressure and respond precisely when others panic. Not motivation, but neural discipline. You turn stress into data, mistakes into maps. Modern humans live in a pleasant loop: eat, watch, forget. Without pressure, the brain has no need to adapt, and when it doesn't adapt, it stops growing. Once it stops growing, you become easy to control. To master your mind, you must create deliberate pressure, not to break, but to sharpen. For example, work under time limits, talk with people smarter than you, learn what makes you uncomfortable. Each time you resist your brain's laziness, you rebuild stronger neural circuits. Discomfort is the signal of evolution. There is no growth in comfort. Comfort is the anesthetic that kills the mind slowly, without pain. Design an environment that trains awareness. Remove what makes you predictable, distracted. Change your route. Read what irritates you. Speak with people who disagree with you. Every time you step outside the comfort zone, your brain cracks slightly, and when it heals, it becomes stronger. But remember, stress only becomes intelligence when you reflect on it. After every pressure, ask yourself, what did I learn? What triggered me? What will I do differently next time? Without reflection, every stress is just noise. Build a daily brain training ritual. Meditate for 5 minutes in a noisy place. Immerse in cold water to control fear reflexes. Solve complex problems under time pressure. Ask yourself, if I lost everything tomorrow, what would I do first? That's how you push your brain out of survival mode and into strategy mode. The more your brain is challenged, the faster it analyzes. But if you only seek convenience, the brain falls asleep. When stress rises, observe your limits. The goal isn't collapse, but expansion of endurance. If you can function in chaos and stay calm, you've surpassed 90% of people. Over time, your brain adapts. Instead of reacting, it analyzes. Instead of fearing, it observes. Instead of running, it uses pressure as fuel. This is cognitive conditioning. Create a life that forces you to stay alert, focused, and accountable for every choice. When you face pressure intentionally, you are not controlled by it. You make it serve you. When others collapse under stress, you become sharper. When they tire from conflict, you see the patterns inside it. Machiavelli called this training in peace to win in chaos. If you wait for chaos to prepare, you're already too late. The weak seek comfort. The strong seek clarity. And clarity only comes when you face chaos. Create small challenges every day. Do work harder than you think you can. Confront the person who intimidates you. Speak the truth even when it's hard. Ask yourself difficult questions. When you train your brain to handle pressure, it becomes calm, logical, efficient. Stress stops being the enemy. It becomes a signal. The brain learns to survive in the storm. And one day, what once frightened you becomes what keeps you sharp. Cognitive stress creates the gap between those trapped in the game and those who control it. Most people react in panic. The Machiavellian thinks amid panic, and that is why they're always ahead. If you've ever lived through a moment where your mind was stretched to its limit but emerged clearer afterward, share it in the comments. It doesn't have to be long, just one line. What forged your mind? Because when you share it, you're not just leaving a comment, you're proving your brain has learned to evolve under pressure. Number 3. Predictive thinking. Machiavelli believed power doesn't lie in reaction but in prediction. The one who reacts is always behind. The one who predicts always wins. Because the weak live in the present, the strong live 2 steps ahead of it. They don't wait for events to happen before reacting. They prepare. When chaos comes, they already have their next move. Predictive thinking is the ability to read the psychological map and the environment before others even realize where they stand. That's why Machiavelli survived among countless schemes, not through strength but through preparation. He understood most people act in repeating patterns. Emotion leads to habit. Habit creates outcome. Whoever can read that pattern can foresee every move. Start with observation. Don't just listen to what people say. Watch how they react. When someone says, "I don't care," look at their eyes. You'll see defense. When someone praises you, notice their tone. You'll see their motive. Every reaction is data. And once you collect enough data, the brain begins to recognize behavioral patterns. Machiavelli once wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. You cannot control people until you understand what drives their actions." Train predictive thinking like a muscle. Before every conversation, imagine 3 possible reactions. Before every decision, write down 3 possible consequences. Before meeting someone, guess what they won't say aloud. This isn't intuition, it's probability. Every wrong guess teaches you another human trigger. Every right one brings you closer to mastering reality. Predictive thinking is not about reading the future. It's about modeling the present. It's the ability to see the connection between emotion, action, and result. When you can do that, you control outcomes without forcing anyone. For example, when someone gets angry, it's not because you're wrong, but because you touched their weakness. Knowing that, you don't need to argue. You just stay silent at the right moment. That silence makes them reveal even more. And you win without confrontation. A skilled predictor doesn't react fast. They react at the right time. And timing comes from seeing beyond emotion. Think back. How many times have you been dragged into something pointless? A single message ruined your mood. One sentence made you angry all day. That's because you reacted too early, before understanding the game being played. Machiavelli never reacted immediately. He observed, analyzed motives, asked who benefits, then acted. Predictive thinking requires separating emotion from expectation. Don't think "I want this to happen." Think "this could happen." The difference between desire and prediction is the line between illusion and strategy. The failed see the world through hope. The successful see it through probability. Machiavelli only trusted what could be predicted because he knew. Hope blinds men. Preparation makes them invincible. Make prediction a daily reflex. When someone speaks, guess how they'll end the sentence. When watching the news, guess what happens next, then verify. When you walk into a room, read its energy. Who leads? Who hides something? Do this long enough, and you'll start to see ahead, not through mysticism, but through logic. Your brain starts catching the patterns others ignore, and that's when you enter the realm of strategic thinking. Predictive thinking applies not just to others but to yourself. Every mistake has an early signal. You just didn't notice it. If you dare to look directly, you won't repeat it. He who can read himself is already evolving. When you know what makes you lose control, who triggers your errors, you can stop the failure before it begins. Those with predictive thinking don't need to control people. They control the environment by arranging, preparing, and making everything appear random. That's the art of bringing order to chaos, and that art belongs only to those calm enough to observe. When you train predictive thinking long enough, you realize nothing is ever sudden. Every betrayal, change, or collapse shows its signs first. It's just that most people aren't alert enough to see them. At this point, you have two choices. Live like everyone else, waiting for chaos, then reacting, or live like Machiavelli, predicting and preparing before it comes. The first always fears. The second always remains calm, because the first is reactive. The second already sees the game. When you reach this level, you don't just control yourself. You begin to shape circumstances, not through deceit but through awareness. You don't manipulate anyone. They reveal themselves through behavior. You simply observe and position yourself accordingly. That is the power of prediction. Instead of chasing outcomes, you design them. If you've ever predicted someone's action or reaction and were surprised you were right, write in the comments, "I see 10 moves ahead." Because the moment you declare that, you are not just listening to this video. You're beginning to see the world through Machiavelli's eyes. Number 4. Mental agility. This is the line between someone who is merely smart and someone truly dangerous. A mentally agile mind is not one that knows a lot, but one that can shift perspective instantly without losing clarity. Most people collapse, not because they're ignorant, but because they're rigid. When things don't go as they planned, they panic. But the Machiavellian is never bound by plans. They act strategically, yet can pivot at any moment. Mental agility is the ability to stay calm through change and turn chaos into opportunity. The more flexible you are, the harder you are to defeat. Rigid people can be predicted. Adaptive ones cannot. Look around you. Most people fail not from lack of opportunity, but from the inability to adapt. They cling to old methods in a new world. They protect their plans instead of their direction. Machiavelli understood this early. He wrote, "The cautious man who yields advantage to the bold will prevail," meaning, the one who shifts faster than his opponent always has the edge. In politics, he survived by changing roles, sometimes an advisor, sometimes a writer, sometimes just a silent observer. Not because he was weak, but because he knew those who adapt survive. To build mental agility, you must abandon one-dimensional thinking. Start questioning everything you believe to be true. What if I'm wrong? What if they're right? If this path didn't exist, what else would? Every time you flip an assumption, you unlock another layer of awareness. The flexible don't think in right or wrong. They think in effectiveness. Because in the game of power, effectiveness matters more than truth. Train flexibility daily. Do something you've never done. Read a subject you once hated. Talk to someone who disagrees with you. Temporarily believe the opposite of your own belief. When you force your brain to operate in contradiction, it learns to shift perspectives without fear. And when you can do that, no one can control you. Agility is also the ability to act instantly yet accurately. The weak act out of fear. The strong act out of preparation. Like a swordsman, he doesn't analyze every move. He feels the strike and reacts with trained instinct. Your brain is the same. Train it to process fast and precise under pressure. Solve random problems. Make decisions in 10 seconds. Find solutions while others are still arguing. The more you train, the stronger your logical reflexes become. An agile mind is also one that doesn't get trapped in emotion. Emotion slows reaction. The overly emotional recover slowly. The Machiavellian is different. They feel emotions but never let them steer direction. They know when to be cold, when to be warm, when to stay silent, when to strike. Emotions to them are instruments of navigation, not burdens to carry. The rigid seek certainty, the flexible seek understanding. One wants the world to stand still. The other knows change is the only law. Once you understand that, you stop fearing risk. You don't need perfection to act. You act, observe, adjust, and continue. That's how strategic minds survive. In a world that never stops moving, your mind must learn to dance between possibilities, not stiff, not soft, not chaotic, not frozen, just fluid and precise. The flexible don't compromise with everything. They simply reshape themselves to pass through doors others can't see. When the world collapses, they don't complain. They rebuild. When others panic, they observe. And when opportunity appears, they strike without hesitation. Machiavelli once said, "Fortune favors those who can adapt." He didn't believe in luck. He believed in perceptual speed. The first to notice change is the one who controls it. To become truly agile, change the plan, not the goal. The plan is the tool. The goal is the direction. The weak protect the tool. The strong protect the direction. If the road is blocked, don't crash through it, find another path. When you are so adaptable that no one can predict your next move, you become an uncontrollable variable. People won't know if you'll stay silent or respond, yield or strike. That unpredictability makes you invisible in their strategy. And that is absolute advantage. Mental agility isn't natural. It's forged through conflict, discipline, and curiosity. The more you test, the faster you get. The more you observe, the more precise you become. At some point, your brain functions like a strategic machine. Every action has purpose. Nothing is random. The mentally agile are like water. They don't fear shape. They focus on flow. And they know no matter where the barrier stands, water always finds a way. Be that person, unaffected by circumstance, emotion, or plan. Because in this world, the rigid will break. The soft will be swept away. Only the flexible with discipline will endure. If you've listened this far, leave a sign in the comments. Just 2 words. I am water. Because the one who can bend without breaking is the one who can never be defeated. Number 5. Unpredictability, the armor of the wise. Machiavelli believed unpredictability is the armor of the wise. The one who can be predicted can be controlled. The one who cannot is always respected. In every game of power, what makes you dangerous is not what you say, but what others can't figure out about you. When they don't know what you'll do next, they hesitate. And when they hesitate, you've already controlled the atmosphere around you, without saying a word. Machiavelli wrote, "Nothing makes men more fearful than uncertainty." He never let his enemies know what he was thinking. He made them guess, made them uneasy, made them trip over themselves trying to understand him. That is the art of indirect control, making others put themselves on defense. In the modern world, you are watched constantly. Social media turns your behavior into data. People know when you're angry, when you react, when you're vulnerable. A wise person knows this and deliberately breaks their own pattern. Silent today, active tomorrow, not to attract attention, but to control psychological rhythm. The unpredictable are not chaotic. They have order, an order invisible to outsiders. Every action, every pause is a test. They speak little to see who can't endure the silence. They delay reactions to let others expose themselves. And when everyone has spoken, they strike precisely, decisively. If you want to become unpredictable, stop reacting immediately. The gap between stimulus and response is where you control time. Whoever controls the tempo controls the game. Don't reply to messages right away. Don't respond when provoked. Don't rush to explain. Deliberate slowness is a sign of power. When you stay silent, others start talking more. And the more they talk, the more they reveal. The unpredictable know when to give, when to withdraw, when to counter. Sometimes they give to lower the other's guard. Sometimes they retreat to make others think they've won. Then they strike at the moment of overconfidence. That's not manipulation. That's survival art. Machiavelli understood. He who pretends weakness when strong and strength when weak is invincible. Learn the art of strategic ambiguity. Never let people know exactly what you want. Reveal a piece, hide the rest. When they think you care, act cold. When they think you're indifferent, strike hard. This contradiction keeps them from defining you. And that is your advantage. Unpredictability isn't about deceit. It's about conserving energy. When others can't read you, they can't drain you. They don't know where to attack. The wise don't show true emotion. Not because they're cold, but because they know. Emotion is data. Once people read your emotion, they know how to manipulate you. Silence is the purest weapon. When you're silent, others begin to expose themselves. When you stop explaining, they invent their own reasons to understand you. And in doing so, they make mistakes. The Machiavellian understands. Unpredictability doesn't create distance. It creates invisible respect. People don't fear your strength. They fear not knowing what you'll do next. Try staying silent longer in your next conversation and observe who loses composure first. In that moment, you'll see. Power doesn't lie in words, but in the pause between them. Unpredictability isn't performance. It's absolute self-control. When you no longer need to be understood, you make others guess. And every time they guess, they spend energy on you. Remember, the predictable can be defeated with a single sentence. The unpredictable make the whole room fall silent before speaking. That is the power of the Machiavellian. If you've ever stayed silent in a tense moment and watched others grow uneasy, share that moment in the comments. Because once you learn to let silence speak for you, you've mastered one of Machiavelli's most dangerous laws of power. When they cannot read you, they cannot control you. Number 6, emotional intelligence. Machiavelli taught, "He who masters emotion masters people." In every power struggle, no one wins through logic alone. The winner is the one who understands emotion, but is not ruled by it. That is emotional intelligence, a soft weapon sharp as a blade. Look around you. Most people live as puppets of emotion. One insult crushes their confidence. One cold glance makes them react. One compliment makes them trust too quickly. The world doesn't manipulate them through strength. It manipulates them through emotion. Machiavelli knew this 500 years ago. He said, "He who controls himself controls others." Emotional intelligence is not weakness. It's the ability to observe emotion without reacting to it. When you're angry, but your voice stays calm, you've already won. When you're provoked, yet stay silent, you control the game. When you understand the real motive behind another person's actions, you're reading their psychology. The wise don't avoid emotion. They decode it. When you feel envy, that's data. It shows what you truly desire. When you feel fear, that's a signal. It shows where you need to grow. When you feel hurt, that's an opportunity. It exposes the part of you still dependent on validation. Emotion is not the enemy, it's a map. Those who can read the map lead the journey. Those who can't get lost within themselves. To master emotion, start by observing yourself. When emotion arises, name it. Don't say "I'm angry." Say "there is anger arising." By changing your words, you separate yourself from reaction. From victim, you become observer. The moment you see emotion, you stand above it. Emotional intelligence is also the ability to read others' emotions. A person who speaks loudly isn't strong. They're afraid of being ignored. A person who stays quiet isn't always calm. They're watching. A person who acts cold is often deeply wounded. The Machiavellian doesn't judge. They analyze. Emotion is the language of instinct, and whoever understands instinct holds power. Learn to read emotional signals. When someone speaks faster, they're hiding something. When their tone softens, they're trying to persuade. When they smile but their eyes don't, they're on defense. That's not intuition. It's biological data. The body reveals what words conceal. The Machiavellian uses emotional intelligence not to manipulate but to steer the atmosphere. When others are tense, they lower their tone. When others are angry, they smile. When others are afraid, They create safety. That is true influence. No commands needed, only energy direction. To develop emotional intelligence, train awareness. Instead of reaction, when angry, stay silent for 30 seconds. When afraid, breathe deeply and feel your body. When overly excited, wait 5 seconds before acting. When disappointed, write instead of speaking. Each time you do this, you turn emotion into a tool. Emotion no longer drives you. You drive it. Successful people rarely lose their temper in public, not because they lack feeling, but because they know. Emotion is information, not instruction. They read emotions to understand others, not to let others read them. That's the difference between the observer and the prey. Machiavelli once said, "Men are driven by fear and hope." By mastering both, he could lead crowds without ever touching them. Whoever controls others' emotions controls their behavior. To reach that level, you must be immune to provocation. When someone tries to trigger you, pause. Every time you get angry, you show them your buttons. The wise erase their buttons. They feel, but don't reveal. Emotion is energy. If you don't control it, others will use it. If you do, you convert it into magnetism. A calm gaze can silence a room. A soft word can make others tremble. Because energy is stronger than speech. Emotional intelligence is the foundation of soft power. When you're calm, people listen. When you lose calm, you lose power. The strongest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the quietest one who feels the deepest. When you understand people at this level, you stop fearing betrayal, silence, or criticism. You just see patterns. You analyze. You draw a strategy. No resentment, only awareness. If you've ever stayed calm in a moment when others lost control, share that story in the comments. Because that isn't just a story. It is proof that you are joining the ranks of those who master emotion instead of being mastered by it. Number 7. The Supreme Thinker. The peak of intelligence is to become a supreme thinker, not the one who knows the most, but the one who understands the deepest, not the one who reacts the fastest, but the one who sees the structure behind every shift. Ordinary people see events, the intelligent see causes. But the supreme thinker sees the operating system of the world itself. They don't ask what's happening. They ask, why must it happen this way? At this level, the mind no longer chases the world. It adjusts the world around it. You no longer react to people. You design their reactions. Others ask why. You ask how. That's the difference between those who exist and those who command. Machiavelli understood. True power doesn't lie in immediate action, but in the ability to see 10 moves ahead while remaining still. Ordinary people live by reaction. The Machiavellian lives by prediction and design. They don't wait for fate. They program it. A supreme thinker doesn't seek praise. They seek data. Every glance, every failure, every betrayal is information. And information is gold. Because when you have data, nothing is random. You don't need to guess. You've already read the pattern. To reach this level, you must combine all the principles you've learned: pressure to sharpen the mind, prediction to lead, agility to survive, unpredictability to protect, and emotional control to retain power. When these 5 elements become instinct, they form an unbreakable system of thought. Those who reach this tier speak little. They act in silence, because they understand real power doesn't need to be seen. While others are still arguing, they've already decided. While others are still thinking, they've already moved. Machiavelli called it the speed of perception. Remember, ordinary people aim to win battles. The Machiavellian aims to win the war. And to win, they think in decades, not days. They act not from emotion, but from a goal 10 steps ahead. They know, he who knows how to wait gains everything. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is observation, preparation, and striking at the one moment that matters. When you reach this level, you no longer fight others. You fight yourself. It's no longer about being better than them. It's about being better than you were yesterday. Because the true enemy of intelligence is not ignorance, but complacency. Complacency puts the mind to sleep within victory. And when the mind sleeps, power fades. The Machiavellian never sleeps. They never stop learning, never stop testing, never stop observing, because they understand. Intelligence never stands still. It is either sharpening or dulling. And one moment of carelessness turns you back into a pawn. When the mind reaches clarity, you no longer need to prove strength. Your calmness speaks for you. No one hears you shout, but everyone feels your presence. No one sees you boast, but they tread carefully around you. That is static power, the kind that makes a room adjust itself the moment you walk in. And then you'll understand. You don't need to control anyone. You only need to control yourself. Because the one who masters himself is untouchable. No emotion can manipulate him. No word can sway him. No system can subdue him. That is the summit of the Machiavellian mindset. Needing no love, needing no understanding, only silent respect. Others seek power to prove themselves. You seek power so you no longer have to. If you've listened this far, leave an affirmation in the comments. Just 6 words. I control myself first, always with clarity. Because the moment you write that, you've surpassed 99% of people out there. Those still trying to control the world without ever having controlled themselves. Outro. The manifesto of the uncontrollable. If you've listened this far, it means your mind has crossed the threshold that most people will never reach. You've walked through fear, through pressure, through conflict, and through the need to be recognized. Now you no longer seek power. You become the source of it. Machiavelli never taught men to be ruthless. He taught them not to be weak. Because this world does not reward blind kindness. It only respects those who understand the rules of the game and dare to control themselves before controlling others. When you understand how the mind operates, every fear becomes transparent. No one can manipulate you anymore through praise or criticism. No emotion can pull you off your axis. No system can make you kneel, because you have become what Machiavelli called the untouchable. The world outside will remain loud. People will still argue, show off, and react. But you will simply stay silent, observe, prepare, and act at the perfect moment. You don't need to be understood. You don't need to be loved. You only need to be respected through presence. Because your mind is no longer a reflex, it is a tool, a weapon, an empire of its own. Before this video ends, leave your final declaration in the comments. My mind is my weapon. I am not controlled. I write my own fate. Because when you write those words, they stop being a phrase. They become a commitment, a vow that from this day forward, you are not just living. You are commanding reality. And in that moment, if Machiavelli were alive, he would smile, because he would know. You've understood the ultimate secret of power. Self-mastery is the highest form of domination. If this video touched something deep within you, share it with someone who needs to awaken, and write in the comments, I choose to master, not to react. Because that is the first sentence of all freedom.